Everybody has an opinion about NFL players kneeling during the national anthem in protest of police brutality. But what are the players' legal rights to express themselves this way? There are many issues to talk about, and we've got you covered with what you need to know with Shari. Nice to have you with us.
Good morning.
It's been a talker, hasn't it, all weekend and now right through the midweek. Free speech and our rights. Let's start with free speech and where it comes from.
Sure. Well, our right to freedom of speech dates back to 1791 and the first of 10 amendments to the Constitution, but the language was very vague, as is often the case, and so, for example, it didn't really explain what forms of expression it covers or what types of government intervention it prevents or what other public interests need to be balanced with our right to free speech. So over the last 200 plus years, this was tested in actual situations, protests and so on. And we know that at this point, the forms that it covers are really limitless. So your freedom of speech allows you to speak, it allows you to wear a t-shirt with language, it allows certain kinds of art and actions. But we know that the restrictions can be imposed in terms of time, place, and manner that you do that, as long as they're content neutral. We also know that you're not necessarily free to express yourself openly however you want in a private place, like a workplace. We know that hate speech is allowed, but that the line is drawn if there's an imminent fear of physical harm.
I think that's what people have been talking about, too, that how does it apply to the players, because it is their workplace.
Oh, yeah.
And that's been, I've heard that discussed so much. So how does it apply?
Well, so the form, obviously, is an action of kneeling during the national anthem, which is allowed. It is a public venue in a stadium. It's not threatening in any way, but like you said, it is their workplace, so that would be up to their employers to decide. But it's not unusual, Roxanne, to see famous sports stars or musicians or actors or even politicians expressing their freedom of expression in the workplace.
Well, it has happened all along. I mean, like as you said, it's happened decade after decade. This is not the first instance of it. So what impact is all of this going to have on our free speech?
Right. So here's the thing. A lot of people think, well, you know, I'm not planning on going out and saying anything edgy, so I'm not really worried about this. But freedom of speech goes directly to the type of information and ideas that you hear. So we've never really had any major social changes. If you look at the women's right to vote or civil rights or the Vietnam War, all of these things involved freedom of speech. We've got a lot of issues right now. We've got Charlottesville, we've got fake news on the internet, we've got this NFL issue, all kinds of things that go to freedom of speech, and the way we react to those is going to have a big impact on what information we get. So, for example, sometimes free speech zones are used, for example, at conventions where there are going to be protesters and people are barricaded into areas. If those areas are allowed to be put out of the sight of the media, you're not even going to know about those protesters. Or however Facebook decides to respond to restricting fake news may have some impacts on you and other types of information you see. So it really plays an important role.
So there could be some changes coming in how it's handled.
This will always be evolving. At one point in this country, it was actually illegal to hand out pamphlets that promoted a controversial form of government. So it's up to all of us to decide what direction we want our freedom of speech to go in.
Shari with what we need to know. Thank you.
Sure.
A lot of information there. Let's send things over to Felicia. Thanks.